Christ, Peace, and Compassion. Ted asked me to come up here because many of you know we do sign the ASL interpretation of the sharing of Christ Peace. So I just wanted to help teach that again, because some of us struggle with it more than others. As a disclaimer, I am not an ASL interpreter, or American Sign Language is what that stands for. If you're interested in more sign language, I would recommend finding someone who is an ASL interpreter, or even someone within our own congregation, like Amy Schmidt-Rundell or Nicole Hoffman, who both know different translations of ASL, but they know more than I do. My background is in teaching it to babies and toddlers and their caregivers, so I teach baby sign language. And so I'm teaching them to use signs to communicate, but only to use vocabulary. I'm not teaching the language, which is a different thing. So when I do teach babies and their caregivers to use sign language vocabulary, I tell parents that this is a method of communication that has been proven to enhance the bonding between parent and child, because, right, if we can understand one another, we have a better bond, which is something we all need to learn. So I see that kind of when we do this as a congregation, especially when we started teaching ASL to the congregation. It was during the pandemic when we didn't want to touch anybody, we didn't want to be close to anybody, so we could still sign and create that bond even if we were 6 feet apart, right? Or if we were watching virtually. So another thing that I really appreciate about the sign language is that it has some really beautiful and meaningful imagery that is kind of brought to mind as we engage not just our voices, but our bodies. So we're using our bodies to communicate, which, like I told the first class, is something that's a little foreign to Presbyterians, because often we, don't want to move around too much. And another thing that's important to note is that ASL is its own language. Therefore, it doesn't follow the same grammar and syntax as English, okay? So native US ASL users will actually learn English as a second language. Like I said before, I'm on a Facebook group of ASL speakers, and when they're typing something out, it is a little bit hard for me as an English is my first language speaker to understand what they're typing, because it's not coming out in the same way that I would type something out. So it's their second language. And because of this, we will often be interpreting concepts, not specific words. And that will become apparent in our very first word as we're signing the peace. So the word peace is actually a combination word, or a combination sign. It's a combination of two concepts, and the two concepts are become and quiet. So it's kind of a beautiful imagery there, because peace is to become quiet. Okay, so the first half is to become, and that's where you see us putting our hands like this, and it doesn't matter which hand is in front. And then you kind of slowly twist them until you get the other hand in front. Okay, so that's become. And then we do quiet, which is just kind of like you're quieting a crowd or soothing a crowd, okay? So become, quiet, that's peace, okay? And then with is we take our two fists with our thumbs on top and we bring them together, with. Okay, so become, quiet, with, and then we're gesturing. As worship leaders, we'll be gesturing to the entire congregation. If you're just out in the congregation and you want to sign to an individual or a couple of individuals, you can just point, okay? Even though that's not always considered polite. Pointing is okay in ASL. So if I was just going to sign to Dave over here, I would sign become quiet with you. Okay, and then to respond, that's the easiest part that I see many people in the congregation are able to do very easily, is also with you, but in ASL it means same. So it's like same thing, we're the same. And so that's just, if you're familiar with the ASL language, the letter Y in ASL, so it's the Y hand shape, and you rock that back and forth between you and whoever you're talking to, okay? So same, and also with you. So we can practice it as it is usually spoken during worship. Another thing to note is that when we say it, our voice, we're using the word peace of Christ. We made a choice not to include Christ sign in there because it just makes it a little more complicated, and we wanted to keep it simple at first, especially so that everyone can understand this part first before we added in another sign. So, but if you're the worship leader, we do still encourage you to use the words Christ, the peace of Christ, because that's obviously very important. So, what you would say as a worship leader is, and now, as a visible sign of what it means to live together in the care and the context of Christ's community, let us extend Christ's peace and compassion to those around us. So you would sign, the peace of Christ be with you all, and also with you. Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. So again, one of the things that's important is to sign slowly and clearly. So we have had some worship leaders who kind of loosey-goosey, don't know, haven't really incorporated that as part of sort of how you share the peace. So what are we signing? We're becoming peaceful with someone else, and that's perfect for the worship leader to be clear. The peace of Christ be with you all. That's I think a really good sort of mnemonic of how are we sharing that, because this part is pretty easy.
Not this.
Nope, it's not this. It is
it's
this.
It's not hang 10.
No,
This
exactly.
is play.
Thank you.
Or play, yes.
Trust I have a
is.
toddler. That's what she knew first.
Play was her first one. Interesting.
Play was her first one.
Okay, good.
The other thing is that every now and then I will say to one side of the congregation, you face them, and this side, you face them.
Okay.
So that it then is a way for the congregation to be looking at one another. Because otherwise, the worship leader is the only one who is saying, the peace be with you, that way. And so it doesn't matter. You can do it however is most comfortable to you, but that signing should be slow and clear, just like we're speaking.